It's not just a 17-year-old or 50-year-old. You have to do it all along the way and just keep reassessing. Am I doing the best for myself? Is this really the life I want to be leading? I might not have the ideal job, but how do I make this job more enjoyable? How do I make it better?
Welcome to another episode of They Not Like Us. And today we've got an incredible conversation lined up. But before we dive in, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the powerful stories, insights, and advice we bring to you every week. And let's dive into today's episode.
Hello, welcome back to They Not Like Us. I'm your host Aaron, and today I'm joined by Nancy Dillingham Marks. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Hi, thank you, Aaron. I'm so excited to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you here. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, I spent most of my career in the corporate world and a lot of different areas, but primarily in technology, kind of the infrastructure of what makes everything work for you, keep the bad guys out and you connected to everybody else. And as my world got ready to go to the next phase of retirement, I wasn't ready. And so I looked around at my hobbies and didn't feel any one of them were quite right yet. Decided to try some new things and fell in love with a thing called fused glass. And from that, I opened my own studio and now have a small business here in Southern California in the Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks area. And I'm having the time of my life.
Nancy, what you say fused glass? For some of us, like maybe slightly ignorant people like myself, I don't necessarily know what fused glass is. So tell me a bit more about it, if you could.
Sure. Most people know blown glass, and that's considered hot glass. And that's around 2,000 degrees that you get to be in front of that blowhole. And that's pretty hot. And you really need to be moving all the time and know what all the steps are. People know about stained glass, which is considered cold glass, as is mosaic, because you're not heating it up. We are actually in the fused glass world. It's only been around about 50 years, and it is considered warm glass because we're working on the glass at room temperature. So we're breaking our glass, cutting it, shaping it, kind of stacking it, whatever we would like to do with a piece. And then we put it in a kiln. I run mine at night, similar to a ceramics kiln, but it has the elements in a little bit different places. And we go between 1,1500 degrees for the most part, and we're not even there. So it's running and we're sleeping. So when we open the kiln the next day, we have these beautiful pieces that from that heat fused together. So I actually have a little piece here. This is just a little aspen tree. It was one of the early projects that I did. And we took pieces of glass, and you can see this. Oops, you can see a little bit of dimension in them still. This is the lower temperature. And so we've got sheet glass and crushed glass, which is called frit. And we just kind of do our thing of putting them together the way we'd like. And then it goes into the kiln, and it comes out soft and smooth and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never seen that before. What was it about fused glass that kind of captivated you and kind of got you interested in doing it?
Well, I tried, like I said, a lot of different things. Nothing really captured my attention because nothing really resonated with me. It sort of didn't talk to me. But when I did the fused glass class, I took it because my mom was doing fused glass at the assisted living facility that she's at. And she loved it. I'd never heard of it. I didn't even think I had a creative bone in my body because the things I made in the past, they were okay, but they didn't usually match up quite right. I tried knitting. I had a sleeve that was much longer on one side than the other, and that was somebody helping me. I tried sewing. I ended up not having things match up quite right. Cooking was okay. Ceramics, didn't work at all for me. It was a kind of that thing. Woodworking, it was okay, but I wasn't really good at measuring. So I made a stool for my sister to do painting with, and it was too tall for her. Oh yeah, you should measure how tall the person is first. That kind of thing. When I did the fused glass, it didn't have to match exactly. It didn't have to be perfect cuts. And you could just put colors that you like together, and they came out in an abstract piece so beautiful. They just resonated with me. That color, the energy that came off the glass, it just excited me. And I could see the imperfections that I had, but it didn't bother me. I learned to embrace my imperfections, I guess is the right way to say it. But it just excited me, and I had such a good time. I just kept wanting to do more, and I wanted to do more. And I'm still doing more.
I love it. Obviously, Nancy, you've gone from like a corporate background in a corporate world to doing what would be classed as a creative insight and business, essentially. So, what I did a little bit of research on this, and only 10% of people shift from the corporate world into kind of creative stuff. Why do you think that is?
Uh, I think a lot of times, like myself, I didn't think I was creative. I didn't think I was an artist. And so when I finally took the leap to try, because, mom didn't care if I was good at it or not. Mom was just excited that I wanted to do something with her. So the motivation for me to try this particular outlet when I thought I wasn't creative, mom was the motivator to do it anyways. And I was so glad I did, because I am an artist. I am extremely creative. I had just hadn't found the right medium for me. And the other thing is a lot of people in corporate don't know how to run a small business. So my husband's corporation, which was the last business I had really major worked in, I was I moved up to the chief operating officer. So I was responsible for all the accounting department, doing it myself for a while. And I learned all these tasks that I was fully aware of in working for IBM and Toshiba and Sony Pictures Entertainment, those kinds of companies, but it wasn't something that I was directly involved in. So I am a logical person, and I'm a fairly organizational person, and workflow is something that is kind of one of my secret powers. Or maybe I should call this a superpower. It's not very secret anymore. And I really enjoyed it. And so moving into the creative world, I was actually more of a business owner first before I was even as strong an artist as I am now. So I think it's hard for people to make that leap, or they're afraid to ask for help. I looked at my friends and I asked them for help for teaching the more advanced classes. I ran by these other artists and said, okay, what do you think about these ideas that I have? So I made my friends my kind of board of directors and took a lot of guidance and recommendations from them on the best way to try and do things. And I think that made me much more successful than just trying to do it on my own and think I know everything, which I clearly don't.
Yeah, none of us do, right? We all need a bit of
Yeah,
support and a bit of help with these things.
absolutely.
Yeah, going into the creative side of things then, because creativity actually, when you do anything, create anything from scratch, takes actual courage, doesn't it? Because you're putting yourself out there, you're saying this is what I've made, put it out to the world, and letting them kind of almost judge it and critique it. So it takes courage to do creative endeavors, and maybe that's why it puts a lot of people off from actually doing it.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I have a lot of people. We teach classes at my studio that I opened. January 1st, 2020, I took over the lease and opened the doors 5 weeks before COVID hit. So I had a lot of time to practice. Just going to throw that in there right now. But I have a lot of people who come in for classes now, and they came in with a friend. And they'll be like, oh, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I don't know if I can do this, but my friend dragged me in. And I giggle because, gee, that was me at one point. So after they have the class, they tell me they really enjoyed it. They found it therapeutic because breaking glass and doing it correctly and not getting hurt is really fun. I mean, it's amazing how it changes kind of your viewpoint of your day. because it's something you can do that's very successful quickly. And when they come to pick up their project about a month, what am I saying? About a week later, when it's been fired, I have them look at their pieces and they're like, oh my gosh, did I really make this? Is this real? Are you sure this is mine? I mean, this is really nice. And I'll laugh. I say, you can never say you don't have a creative bone in your body ever again because you just proved you do. And we all laugh and we all have a great time. And it's something that is enjoyable, fun, creative, and you kind of join a community when you come into my studio. We all support each other tremendously and really encourage each other to be outside the box if we want. It doesn't matter if you don't color in the lines. It doesn't matter if a stick figure doesn't look like a person. I mean, what person looks like a stick figure? Let's put it the other way around. Who said the lines should be there? Those are kind of my jokes that I used to say to myself, and it's true. I don't have to follow a specific pattern. I can make something that's beautiful, whether it's abstract or my own version of, a piece that somebody else had someday made.
Yeah, I think it's important as well with creativity that we explore the differences, right? So everybody's slightly different. So we'll do things in a different way and we'll see things in a different way. And it's important to explore that.
Absolutely. I find that, I can give a class all exactly the same instruction. They're all hearing the same thing and they're allowed to design what they'd like. Because the classes are really to teach technique. So it's not like we put a basket of fruit up and say, everybody make, a basket of fruit. Everybody makes what they want and what they're thinking about or how they feel. And so it's a chance to kind of express themselves in a way that no one judges. And it's really incredible. And the encouragement when I have groups of people in for a class that aren't related, they don't know each other, and they look around and the conversations start pretty quickly. And then the encouragement from each other and the reviewing of the work from each other and the support from total strangers, all enjoying the same thing at the same time. I mean, the energy in the studio is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing because you can kind of socialize while you're doing it. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. Everybody's kind of, exploring and making mistakes and finding their way together. So it's you have that kind of joint enterprise then, don't you?
Absolutely. And I have open studio members. So these are people that have reached a level of techniques that they're comfortable with and they want to work with. And so there's usually a couple of them in the studio at almost any time working away on their own stuff. And they invite people to come over and see what they're doing. They invite them to see, and the fun that they have is telling them they started with the same class that particular person's starting with at that time, if it's the introduction class. They all start with the introduction to fused glass class. And from there, you take it where you want to go. And it is so rewarding to see these people come out of their shells, come out of a bit of depression. I'm not saying it makes I'm not a therapist. I'm not that kind of program, but there's times where you need to let go of something. And this is your escape room that you just get to go into, and the rest of the world for a little while goes away. And especially during COVID, once I was allowed to start opening up, a lot of people were attracted to the studio because they could escape whatever it was that was bothering them, the lack of community, the lack of socialization. And it was just a safe space. And that's what the studio really is, a safe space, whether you're really creative or you're not, whether you're really in a good mood or not. We welcome everybody.
Yeah, it's I'm quite intrigued actually, Nancy. How did you get through that COVID period? Because obviously you opened what could be seen as a terrible time, really, with putting that kind of huge roadblocks on your business.
Well, I think I went through the mindset of all the bad things, complaining, whining, and then I realized, and it's kind of again a mindset shift or ego or however you want to refer to it, is I stopped and thought about, I was a single parent since my daughter was 3. And for about 13 years, I guess would be the right way to say it. And I remember coming home from corporate and, trying to unwind and be mommy now. And I always wished I'd had more time. I wish I had more hours in the day. I wish I had more time to get XYZ done. And I realized it was like a light bulb went off that I was suddenly granted all this extra time. And in an odd way, it was a horrible thing that happened. And I hate the fact that COVID is still around, but I tried to see a silver lining in it. So it gave me a lot of time to work on my craft, to learn more techniques, to refine, to make mistakes, to test the waters in areas that I wasn't sure about. I am one of those people who say, when they say whoever they are, says you shouldn't do this, well, why not? Why not? Why can't I? And so I would push the envelope, and sometimes I'd learn, yeah, they're right. And sometimes I'd learn, no, I can do this. It takes a little bit of different approach, but yes, it can be done. And having the big shift in my mindset and not letting my ego just say, oh, horrible times. You just took on this lease. You just took on all this inventory. Oh my gosh, how can you possibly survive? The first year is the hardest. And I just said, you know what? I am meant to be doing this. I am 100% or 110 or whatever you want to say the right number is, convinced that this was what I was supposed to be doing. And I will get through it. And I am just coming up on the end of my 5th year.
That's amazing, to be fair.
I am so excited. I am more excited than ever. The studio has become more than I ever thought it was or would be. When you start a business, you kind of have a business plan. You have an idea of what you want to have happen in the company. And I kept my eyes and ears open. So I was watching and listening for things that maybe weren't working quite right. And that's kind of where, workflow would come in. And do I have this in the right process? Am I presenting things clearly? And all the little things that are done either with the customers or with my workflow, I was looking at everything. And one of the things that had really popped out at me was my open studio folks were making a lot of pieces of art. And they really didn't have any place to show them. And not all of them were savvy enough or had the time or whatever words you want to use to create their own Etsy or Spotify types of sites. And so I looked around and I said, you know what? I have a gift shop online, which wasn't very much online to start off with. It was primarily in the studio. I said, I need to get myself online officially. And I need to offer my open studio folks the opportunity to sell in my gift shop. I said, how great is that if I can help them sell the art they're building and creating? And that went over very well, and it's working very well. And over time, it was like, okay, there's some artists in here that are doing gallery quality work already. And there isn't a local gallery that wants to take on no people who aren't established. And so what did I do? I took over one of the tables and made it an art exhibit. So for a month, each artist would get the table and have an art exhibit. We'd market it that we were doing this, and we would have an artist reception so that you could come meet the artist and talk to them and hear their story and hear what's behind their art. And it's been uncomfortable for some of them to actually have to talk about themselves and to step outside that comfort zone. And all of them have loved it. And they have met new people, and new people have met the studio and met Fused Glass. And it has been an amazing thing to have created that came from being observant and thinking about other people, and not just how am I going to make more money, but rather how can I support my community and the studio and my folks in the studio who are family now.
Yeah, it's quite interesting as well with art. Do you think there's a strong connection between art and kind of somebody's mental health and well-being?
Absolutely, I do. And I think art doesn't have a real good definition. So a lot of people think of art as something like painting or glass or um, ceramics, but art is so much more. I mean, singing and dancing and writing and poetry. And I mean, the list is, I mean, it would take us days probably to list everything when you start thinking about all the different things that fall under art. And there's some people who feel they're creative, but they're not an artist. There's some people who think, they're an artist, but are they really creative? And the two words blend together. And I laugh because I don't care which you think you are. If you're doing something that is beneficial to you and you're happy, yay. And I find doodling is great for a lot of people. And I think the thing that's sort of sad is that people say they don't have the time. And when people throw that at me, I of course, just because they say you don't have the time doesn't mean you don't have the time. So I'll say, is it possible to carve out 5 minutes a week in 1 week? Can you do that? And they're like, of course I can. I can find 5 minutes. Okay, doodle, write, just scribble, take a crayon, take colored pencils. And they look at me like they're crazy, that I'm the craziest person they've ever heard. But whatever their thing that they really like, do it. Even if you only write in a book, a story. My husband wrote his first book and he started writing it, was it now 15 years ago, maybe longer? And it took him a long time. He kept putting it in the drawer. And now he's on a trilogy and he's on his third book. But the first book took a really long time because he was working full time and had so many other things going on, but he didn't give up on it. And he kept finding that 5 minutes in a week just to add some extra thoughts. And it materialized into something else and something bigger and better. And that's what you need to do, is you just need to escape from whatever it is that's driving you crazy. So a lot of times people get caught up in something, and I always call it the rabbit hole. You're going down the rabbit hole. You can't get out of it. You have to step out of it. You have to step away. If something's not working for you, step away from it. Clear your head. And when you come back, it works so much better. And I have a story about a mom that I love telling, and she just laughs at me. But a mom came in with her daughter and her daughter's friend. And she was just all hassled. And she says, you have Wi-Fi, right? I'm going to go sit in the corner and I'm going to go. I got work to do. I have this project. It has to get done. And you just take care of the girls and I'll be in the corner. And so I said, okay, but you have to come and you have to at least learn how to break glass. You have to understand what the girls are doing. So when they're talking about it later, you'll understand. And she goes, no. I said, it won't even take 5 minutes. It'll take just a couple minutes. I'm just interrupting for a couple minutes. You drove over here. You took a couple minutes already. So she looked at me and she smiled. She said, okay. So she came over and I gave the instruction on how to break glass correctly. And she did it. And she stopped and she looked at me. She says, I'm taking the whole class. I'm taking it with the girls. And she called me the next day, so excited to tell me that when she got home, it was like to do that job that she was so worried about finishing that project took no time at all. Her head had been cleared. And she got it done in record time, and it felt great. She was so pleased with what her results were. And she had to tell me that it made such a difference and thanked me for just nudging her into doing something else for a few minutes. I didn't expect her to take the whole class. I'm thrilled she did, but just stepping away from it was all she needed, and it cleared her head. So she's been a major advocate to having friends come, and especially ones that are stressed out. And she says, Nancy will help you. Doing the glass will help you. And I laughed. I said, it could be anything. I just happen to be enthusiastic and passionate about what I'm teaching, which helps. But find something else. Not everybody's going to make it to Thousand Oaks or Westlake Village, California to come and take the class with me, even though I wish you would. Especially because it's a long flight for you, Aaron.
It would be a bit of a trip, that.
Yes. But you know what? There are beautiful studios in England as well. So they're all over the world. Not as many as stained glass or glass blowing, but I have to tell you, it is so much fun. But find what's passionate for you and find something that you really enjoy. And if it means you have to try a bunch of different things, it's well worth it. So, Aaron,
Yeah.
what do you like to do?
Oh no, that's a difficult one because yeah, to be honest, a lot of my creativity stuff, what I'm doing at the minute is a lot of kind of online content creation stuff, and I'm kind of messing around with video editing and things like that. That's not to say I'm particularly great at it, but that's kind of my creative outlet at the minute. But it it has changed through my life. You know, I've enjoyed writing and I've enjoyed doing different things. And just like you, really, I'm exploring all these different things, and if something kind of appeals to me, then I kind of stay on that for a little while at the very least until it no longer serves me, I suppose.
Exactly. And that's okay. I mean, people think that because you start one thing that you have to always do it. But it's different for everybody. And that's okay. It's to do what's right for you. I mean, I have people come in and they'll take several classes and they really enjoy it, but then, it's like something else catches their attention and they'd rather do that. That's okay. I don't take it, I'm not offended. I don't worry about it. I just keep moving on. And that's what I want everybody else to do too.
Yeah, it's about that. That's what art is, right? It's just creative expression, isn't it? So, like, there's loads of ways that you can express yourself, and be creative. So, um, and a lot of it is about trying these different things because you don't really know. So, like yours, for instance, the fused glass stuff, I've never heard of it before, so I'd never tried it, so I don't know what it's like. So it's trying these new things could really open up new doors, new pathways, and you might really enjoy it. So
And you also make new friends and you also learn about other people. It's really amazing the people that I have met through all of this. And many of them have become good friends now. And what an additional bonus and blessing. Oh my gosh. You can never have enough good friends around you.
no, that's it. That kind of social element as well, that really adds to stuff, doesn't it? So if you can do stuff as a group and creating like a community and a bond in that way as well, then that really adds massive value to the time that you're putting into it, really.
Absolutely. And socialization is such an important thing for all of us. I think too many people during COVID, they really kind of got isolated and didn't realize how much they needed the socialization. And unfortunately, a lot of friends moved and a lot of friends had other things happening in their lives. But reconnecting or finding new friends, I have friends that moved away and we still stay in touch, not as much. And you can't go have the cup of coffee with them, but you can still visit on the phone. You can still FaceTime. You can actually do Zoom calls and things just to visit so you can see each other. So it's a lot of fun in that respect too. But there's something about the in-person that just sparks me more than most, I think, of any other way. I do love letters and talking on the phone, but being one on one or one on many, oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a different kind of energy, isn't it? When you're in a room with somebody, I suppose, and you can really kind of feel off that energy and the body language and everything else, rather than while technology is brilliant to keep people connected and keep people in touch and stuff, and especially it's moved on leaps and bounds since COVID. That's one of the positives that came out of COVID. But I just think there's still that slight barrier there, isn't it, with technology?
I really think I agree with you completely, because what ends up happening is when you text or you just send an email, the tone and the inflection that you would have in your voice to express something sometimes gets lost, and it's easier to misinterpret something someone says. And as nice as it is that emails and texts can now be spell checked, it doesn't always have the ability to check the meaning of what you're trying to say. And so there's been a lot of times where people misinterpret something that was said and it hurts their feelings. And rather than just clarify, they take it personally. And it's like there's always two sides to everything. So if there wasn't a reason for that person to be upset with you, maybe it was something else that it just didn't come across right in that text or in that email. Why don't you check with them? And I've done that. And there's, when it's happened, it's always been a mistake. I have not had a single time where I have checked with someone when there's something that came across that didn't make any sense. And sometimes it was as simple as they clicked, they typed in Nancy, but they got the wrong Nancy. So they were telling the other Nancy something completely that had nothing to do with me. And it was like, what? I mean, but I wasn't supposed to do something. Why are you waiting for me on something? And so I just reached out and they were like, oh my God, I sent that to you. Oh, I am so sorry. And we would laugh. And laughter really is one of the best medicines. It's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like I say, you get that laughter comes better now with like kind of that personal connection rather than, over text or messaging and stuff like that, because people can kind of lose that. They, like you say, they lose that. How do you say it? They lose a bit of individuality for a start because
Yes.
Everybody's kind of communicating the same way. You miss out on the quirkiness of that person and the differences, but you also miss out on some of the energy where they deliver stuff as well.
Exactly. It as nice as it is that you can send a text, people are expecting an immediate response. For some reason, we've gotten into this mindset that if I text you, you should be responding to me right away. Or if I call you, you should be calling me back right away. And it's like, I don't want to call somebody back if I can't give them the time and the conversation at that moment. I want to wait when I can actually have a conversation and not say, hey, I'm out of time already. I can't talk anymore. I don't want to do that. I want to have a nice, relaxed conversation with my friends. And so sometimes they don't hear from me right away, but they also know that's me. They know that's who I am and that I won't respond right away if I can't. And so I do appreciate that my friends truly do get that about me and respect that. I am like that. And I try to be the same way with new people that I've met. I mean, I've sent off things for people. They've asked me for a quote and I'll send it off and I will follow up just to make sure they got it. That's one of the biggest things also is cyber world. Sometimes things don't go where they're supposed to or they don't ever get delivered or got into spam folder or whatever. So, if I haven't heard from somebody who was really interested, then I will make sure that they know I did send it and follow up and see if everything's okay. Did it meet their requirements? If it didn't, is there something else maybe we could do? Maybe an alternative type of class. And again, it's thinking outside the box, which is important, but not being, the tone is what's really important. It's really easy to say, I can't believe I spent all this time, creating a whatever for you and I haven't heard back from you. Well, that type of tone is horrible. Versus, hey, I just want to make sure you got it and that, did it meet your requirements? If it didn't, is there something else we can talk about? Or maybe some other way of doing this? Big difference.
Yeah, it is a big difference. And I don't know, maybe it's just, it's that distance when you're typing something out, I suppose, that you kind of maybe don't think about the other person, how are they going to receive it so much? You just kind of thinking, I'm just going to get this out and send it, but you're not actually thinking, how is this going to be received on the other end? Whereas when you communicate in person, you're much more aware of the other person and you can kind of pick up on the cues and their reactions to what you're saying and kind of offset that and, use the correct tone, etc.
Exactly. I know that at one point I had to slow down because I was writing things so quickly that my head was ahead of my fingers typing. And so there would be blocks of information that were missing. And I had to proofread it and go, oh, wait a minute. No one's going to understand what I just wrote. I better learn to reread, step away, reread things that are more detailed and to somebody who doesn't know me as well, and make sure that I've got it covered correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure from coming from the corporate world, there's a lot of to in and fro in with emails and everything else, and stuff getting lost in translation.
An email is great when you want to have something documented so that someone can understand all the details. Because again, in this day and age, we've got so much on our mind. Not everybody hears everything that you're saying or gets all the level of detail that you need. So a follow-up, if I've had a conversation, a follow-up with an email with the details that just re-verify it for them, who it just kind of restates it. But again, I need to make sure that it's not just in my terms of, what I know those words to mean, but in the way that someone who doesn't know what those words mean, am I making it clear enough that they can still understand what I'm trying to say? Because in just about anything, in any kind of business, there are terms and acronyms that you use, and you use them all the time, but to somebody from the outside who doesn't know those acronyms, it's like, what's frit? It's crushed glass. But it sure sounds like you're saying something else when you say, oh, frit. And we make jokes about that at the studio too. We do have a lot of jokes about glass. I mean, I laugh that I broke the glass ceiling in corporate. And, fused glass is all it's cracked up to be, those types of things. I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's got to be done right. Got to be done. I'm terrible for doing all the dad jokes, and they're not very well received on this end.
Well, I do have fun with kids. So I teach fused glass to age 7 and up. And so we do birthday parties, we do corporate events as well for adults. But I love it when kids come in, especially with their parents. And so I'll go, okay, so most of them are pretty shy. Most of the kids are pretty shy. And I'll go, okay, so you need to let me know who has the worst jokes, dad or me, because it's competition. And if dad's sitting there, the laughter is even more. And so there'll be times where I'll make a joke and the mom will go, oh my God, she's so used to bad dad jokes. No, you haven't hit it yet. And the kids will get involved at that point. So it becomes this, sort of side conversation that just helps everybody become more comfortable with each other too. And it's so much fun, especially if dad's sitting there. And when dad says my jokes are worse and the kid says, nope, dad, yours are. I love it.
Yeah, it must be good having the children in there as well, because they get right into the creative stuff, right? Like my daughter, she loves kind of crafts and anything crafty. So it's like this morning she's been making masks, and like she has these cat masks, and she puts felt on them, and then like designs them and sticks hair on them and all sorts. She absolutely loves it. But anything kind of creative or crafty like that, absolutely loves it. So I bet that the kids get right into the glass stuff.
They really do. And, it's funny because people say 7. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point where they seem to be able to sit long enough for the class, but also they're more willing to open up to trying new things, and getting out of their own head is very easy for them. So they just get the concepts and they just go with it. And some of the stuff is so amazing from some of these kids, but they're also more careful with the glass, because I teach safety big time. And the kids are actually safer with glass than adults. And people aren't getting cut in our classes. They might get poked. And most of the time, even when they get poked, they didn't even realize they got poked. It's just a little poke. And that's about it. The safety of this is pretty easy to manage. They aren't dealing with huge sheets of glass. I usually cut the big sheets down to small sheets of glass. And so it's very manageable, and learning just little things that help make you safer with the glass is easy to understand. And so I'm really proud of how well everybody does with the glass, because I know that was something I was worried about at first as well. I mean, you break glass at home because you drop something. I mean, the delicacy of trying to sweep that up and clean it up. And it's like, oh, everybody has, get out of here if you don't have shoes on, and that kind of thing. And it's not like that. It's a very different environment. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah, it's good. I've got a question, Nancy. Do you know, like,
Yes.
obviously we're talking about that childlike spirit and that, how they get right into the creativity. How do we as adults, or how do you help some of your kind of customers as adults get more in tune with that and more into that kind of creative, childlike spirit?
I usually try to talk to them about colors and something that a place or location that they really enjoyed, like a vacation or something. So, like, we went to Sedona, Arizona, which has red rock, and oh, it's just absolutely beautiful. And you just start visualizing what you saw. And even though you're not necessarily visualizing it in the level of detail of, oh, that mountain extended, 5 feet, 50 feet, whatever above another one, you are really visualizing the colors more than anything else. And you just start looking for the colors and you start putting them together. And all of a sudden you realize you've created a piece of art. So some people are really into the colors of blue and maybe some blues and greens. And I have a color chart up on the wall. So if people are a little, uncomfortable about, like, I don't know what a contrasting color would be, I go, let's go look at the color chart. And there it is. So which colors would you like to put together? So there's a lot of little things that I try not to try and force design in any way, shape, or form, because I don't think anybody should be forced to try to follow a specific path. I love the fact that everybody can do it the way they want. So some people are very creative and are artists from other genres or mediums. And so they bring that experience with them. And then they're looking to see how to do it with glass. And other people, just like you're saying, aren't sure quite how to even get started. So it's even something as simple as, do you have a garden? Do you have, a favorite place? Do you have certain colors you really like? What colors do you like to wear? And that seems to help generate that interest of a thought process. The other thing that's kind of fun is that you can take a Sharpie, black Sharpie, and you can draw on the glass and it will burn off in the kiln. So you can kind of lay out, if you're looking to, maybe you may want to make a flower or a little flower, several flowers. You can kind of lay it out first with the Sharpie and then kind of fill it in with the glass. So depending on where you are as an artist or a creative person, you can do it your way and what works best for you.
Yeah, I think we all have that creativity in us, and I think we go through our lives and we kind of, and I've mentioned this on many podcasts before, but I think we go through kind of school and our schooling process, and we're kind of told to conform and fit down this particular path, and then we get a job, and then through our career we have to follow a particular path and stay within these boundaries all the time. After childhood, outside of school, more so, we don't really explore that creativity. A lot of us just kind of, go through that mundane day to day, fitting in this, conforming and fitting within this particular box without kind of exploring who we really are or pushing the boundaries. And I think it just takes a bit of time for some people to tap into that again.
Completely agree with you. Like, I didn't think I was. And the truth is that as I look back, there were a lot of areas, maybe I wasn't artistic, but I was very creative in the way I did things. And it didn't occur to me that those were creative thoughts. I just assumed they were more logical thoughts or more strategic thoughts. And so it's a funny thing to look back and kind of think about some of your jobs. And it helps when you have a sounding board of some friends that kind of say, well, look at all the things you did. Those were extremely creative ideas. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they were. Wow. And so I of all people am bad about going through my career and waiting until I was in my late 50s to find that something special for me. My dad had a professor in college that said, if you learn nothing else from this class, learn you need to have hobbies and you need to always make time for your hobbies. And because you're going to need them throughout your life. You're going to need them as a stress release. You're going to need them for so many different reasons. He goes, I can't even tell you all of them. And I remember my dad repeating this so many times, and he had it so exact every time. And he goes, the worst thing is when you get to the point of retirement And if you don't have a hobby, you're going to be miserable. You're going to reach this place that you have wanted to get to for so long, and you're going to be miserable. And don't let that happen to you. And I always remembered hearing that and hearing it over and over again. And so I did try lots of things. I just couldn't find anything that sparked me to want to continue it. And taking my hobby that I found and putting it into a business is something that's always that gray line, at what point do you take a hobby and try to make a business out of it? And I looked at it again in the reverse order. I want to create a business that I can share with other people and create and take this passion that I have found and share it with other people. And again, I had no problem having other people help teach the classes that were more advanced and to be able to make it even better for people to want to do this. But I just knew that this is something that we didn't have a lot of around in our area, and it was different. And, we used to do team building sessions in our, the different businesses. And most of the time it was going out for a lunch or a dinner. And so you ended up sitting with the same people you always talk to anyways. You don't really mingle very much. And I thought, I think it's nice they're taking us outside the business world to do something, our offices. But this isn't really what I would call team building. And so I found that when companies come in, they're small businesses, or they're a department that comes in. So they're still socializing with the same people, but they're seeing them in a different light. So there's people, most of the time, none of them have ever heard of fused glass. So they're all coming in very apprehensive about something new, and they're all learning it together, and they're seeing each other's creative side that they don't normally see in the normal business day. And they're seeing art come alive that they all are enjoying. And it is really refreshing. And it's so much fun to make a difference in someone's life, even if it's just a little bit of a difference, but making an impact. I mean, that is something I didn't even consider when I was starting my own business. I mean, I always tried to make a difference in the way I did my corporate job, and always try to do the best, and always try to make it easier for the people around me to have, I'd get information from somebody. I want to make sure the next person got what they needed in a format they needed it. So the workflow would go better. But there's something about knowing you make a difference in them personally that has just fired me up and made me feel like I was absolutely right. This business needed to happen. And no matter what, I was not going to let COVID or anything else stop me.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to have hobbies. I've always had a hobby, and I encourage my kids to have hobbies. Like, no matter what it is, I don't force mine on them. It's a case of, find your own outlet. But I think it's really, really important to have an outlet, and I think that it helps with your mental health. I think it brings you it brings you joy. It can do so many things, and it's something that you can potentially keep through your life. You can move to different hobbies, but it just brings you different life experiences. You meet different people, and there's just so many good things to come from it.
It really is wonderful. And it's great knowing that this community that I live in the Conejo Valley here, embraces it. And, I'm always looking for ways to help. We do a lot of donations to various charities to help fundraisers, and giving back is a really great thing to do. And we have a tendency of doing it as a group. There's times where I'll be the only one doing it, but there's other times where several of the artists all want to contribute to that particular charity. And so it's really nice how we just all come together to want to help the community itself. And very, very special.
Absolutely. Nancy, what advice would you give to people then who kind of maybe want to pursue a creative passion, but probably feel a bit held back by self-doubt?
Well, I think self-doubt is really something you're telling yourself. So why are you saying that? So are you saying it because you don't have the skills? Well, think about it. Do you have the skills or not? If you have the skills, then why are you saying that to yourself? If you're not, then maybe you don't have the skills to create your own business. Do it with somebody else. Find somebody else who maybe wants to be involved as well. It usually is, most of the things that stop us are things we have told ourselves for way too long, and they're not true. And when we challenge ourselves to why do you say that, it is amazing when you make yourself sort of really look in the mirror. And I had to write it all down. I had to write it down and read it and kind of go back to my, why do they say it? Well, why did I say it? And there wasn't a good justification. I just used it as, for me at least, I used it as an excuse not to pursue something different. And again, it's one of those funny things, because when I look back, I took on a lot of jobs and moved around into positions where my resume would never have, had it been looked at only by my resume, I would never have gotten the job. But I got the job because people knew me and they knew what I was capable of doing, and they knew I was more than capable of doing that job. And I laugh because, again, I would have stopped myself saying, well, my resume doesn't match up. You know, it's not a perfect match. I can't do this job. Where, yes, I can. And somebody else saw it in me, or I saw it in myself. But that self-talk is so easy to do, to be negative. But it's so much more fun when you challenge it and you say, why? Why do I not think I can do something? And sometimes you can do things like marketing and publicity were not something I learned. But that didn't stop me from opening up my own business. What I did was I took classes. I took more classes and I did reading. And am I great at it? No. But am I good at it? Yes. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But did that stop me? No. I learned from my mistakes. And so I accept that I'm not perfect and that I don't know everything. And I think that those are things that stop people. They think they have to know everything perfectly, and you don't. And it's okay to hire somebody to do something you don't like doing. I mean, you don't want to run a business because you don't like doing accounting. Hire somebody to do the accounting for you. Don't let something silly stop you from pursuing something you'd really like to do. But also be realistic. It's not like the movie Field of Dreams, where build it and they will come. You know, you do have to have a business plan. You do have to have some idea of what you're doing and how are you going to be a good business owner. So if you wanted to open a retail shop of selling clothes, you know, who's your target market? Don't buy clothes that's going to fit every single person of every single size to start off with, because you can't carry that kind of inventory and you can't carry those types of things. But find the market you really want to start with, and you can expand later. You can keep adding as you're growing, but always have an idea of what you want to be doing and where you want to go. How's that for a short answer to a question?
No, that's good advice. And ultimately, we all have that negative self-talk, don't we? So we all need to kind of keep that in check and, you know, have a little bit of, you know, challenge it, because it's not just because, you know, you're telling yourself these negative things doesn't make it true. You know, and we need to challenge it. We need to see, you know, what we actually want to achieve, and like you say, put steps in place to make that happen for us.
And I would say I would tell my 17-year-old self to, one, have a hobby and stick with it, and to not listen to self-doubt. But you know what? At 17, I didn't have it. I didn't have self-doubt. I really was very much a go-getter, and I sort of had the I can do it attitude, and let's go, just do it. And so somewhere along the line, I created self-doubt. And I don't know where it was, but I think through your life, you need to keep rechecking in with yourself and reminding yourself of the things. So it's not just a 17-year-old or 50-year-old. You have to do it all along the way and just keep reassessing. Am I doing the best for myself? Is this really the life I want to be leading? I might not have the ideal job, but how do I make this job more enjoyable? How do I make it better? I mean, sometimes you can't. And if you can't make it any better and you're really that miserable, maybe it's time to find another job. Those types of things. But keep checking in with yourself. Why should you go through so much of your life being unhappy, full of self-doubt, and not having a release for, creativity anywhere? It just doesn't sound very appealing to me.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Nancy, if people wanted to get in touch with you or find you online, what's the best place for them to do that?
The studio is Glass Arts with an S Collective. So it's glassartscollective.com. It's Facebook at glassartscollective.com. Same thing with Instagram. I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm starting to build out. I've not been doing that all along. And info at glassartscollective.com is my email. And in the United States, so it's a 1 first, 818-318-1462 is my phone number. And I'm happy to talk to people and help support them on the phone, in email. Ask me questions. I'm happy to answer and help you if I can.
That's cool. I'll make sure I drop some links in the show notes for people to make it a bit easier for them to find you and see what you're up to.
And in our gallery on our website, we have lots of beautiful art. We do have a gift shop. At this time, we're only shipping throughout the United States. So sorry, Aaron. But we do ship throughout the United States, but there's a gallery and the art that's there is amazing. And just looking at it, you don't even have to go to a museum. Just check out our gallery and all the different beautiful pieces that are there. There's 11 artists currently filling that gallery and the gift shop.
Cool. We'll have to take a look at that. Nancy, before we do bring this to a close, are there any kind of final thoughts or messages that you want to leave people with?
I know not everybody's as bubbly and as happy as I am, but I sure wish you could be, because I am living such an amazing life now. And I thought my life was great before, but when you're really passionate about what you're doing and you're open to learning new things and supporting others, boy, there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely. Nancy, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Oh, Aaron, this has been so much fun. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Thanks again for being part of this journey. Stay tuned. We've got even more great conversations coming your way.